Here tonight, following the April release of a thematically and sonically daring new album entitled Violet Street. Please welcome local natives. We're good. I'm like over here with
Hello.
Next to the keyboard.
Working?
Hello. I think it's working. I think
Great.
we're all working. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for having us.
For taking the time. I know we've been trying to get this arranged, I think, for quite some time. So it's super cool that you guys joined us. I want to talk about the new record, and then we'll see where the conversation goes. Albums are often called a snapshot in time, of an artist or a band. So if we think of Violet Street as a snapshot in time, where were you guys kind of creatively at the time you began making this record?
We're a very collaborative band. Normally we do everything together, so we didn't know how to start that one. Yeah, I was thinking, okay, so the question, I was just thinking the actual location, which is not what you...
that's what he means.
Oh, yeah, no, he means in our heart, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to answer where we actually were, because it was like that place embodies just so much amazing emotion and feeling of making this record. And it was at the warehouse in downtown of Sean Everett. He's got this big warehouse studio. And we kind of lived in there and did the classic thing of a band making a record with the producer and kind of just 14 hours every day till 3 a.m. kind of lost our minds for 8 months. And it was, I think, the most fun record that we've ever done.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah. And I know Sean Everett, the producer, had a lot to do with kind of the shape and the sound of the record. Why was he? First of all, how did you meet him? How did you come to meet him?
I think we knew him through. Do you know Lucius? Those women,
Sure.
The New York-based group, and they'd worked with him, and we got kind of wind of him through them. We did a couple weeks. He engineered our third record for a couple weeks, and the second we started working with him, we fell in love with him. He's just so crazy and wild, and has all these creative ideas firing off every second. So then when we wanted to work on the next record, he was the top of our list, and it totally worked out that we did.
There was a fair amount of talk, or at least what I read in terms of the intent of this record, to go back, or at least in some way kind of be reminiscent of Gorilla Manor. First of all, why is that moment and those moments around making Gorilla Manor so evocative for you guys? What does that bring up for you?
Well, our first record, Gorilla Manor, that name came from the nickname for our house that we all kind of graduated school, or quit school or whatever.
That's graduating in a way.
It's a type of graduation.
I graduated. In a sense.
In that sense.
Exactly.
But anyways, we had been doing the band since we were kids. We met when we were very young and playing in high school and playing all through school and college, and we moved into this house together. We moved to LA and we made this album, and it was such a crazy, frenetic time of kind of finding ourselves as adults for the first time and making the album. And it was just such a special experience. And over the years we've had, so this is our fourth album, right?
Yep.
And each one is certainly a chapter, but this felt like a return to that period because we really wanted to emphasize just being a band in a room together, which is a little bit more novel now. It's so easy to create music. We can all produce music, as basically every artist can now. And it's a really great way to do it, but there's just nothing to kind of replace us feeling what it's like in the room live to play off each other. And we're probably going to talk about Sean a lot because he was just such a great part of making this record,
Yeah.
but it was so nice to have a producer that really helped enable that. So it was really central to it, and it was
Sure.
kind of reminiscent of like being kids again who were just trying to make music out of their garages, kind
Yeah.
of.
And if I understand correctly, you guys in general have been pretty meticulous about the way that you've gone about recording, demoing things, and
Right.
kind of having things really buttoned up before you go into the studio. And if I understand correctly, you completely blew that up on this album. Why?
I think we wanted to see what would happen if the first idea or if you could be like just a conduit for your creativity or a conduit for like whatever first idea pops into your head to like record it and have that be like the record versus like the last 3 records we would slave over just like demoing out every song and writing every part, and this time we really wanted to see if we could just feel stuff and see if anything would come in the moment.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get prescriptive with things, like if you're very meticulous with like a detail, and sometimes like you're just like, oh, I just want what the demo had because I love that so much. So like
It's called
trying to
demoitis.
demoitis.
Yeah.
Demoitis.
Chasing the demo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
Afflicts musicians everywhere.
Yeah.
Deadly.
we were intentional about like removing that like emotion from
Right.
this record. Just like we did a couple songs and we're like, oh, let's make a demo. We're like, no. Like just record it on an iPhone so we don't forget and not get super attached and super precious with like this thing is how it has to be.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
helpful was Sean in terms of enabling that kind of attitude?
Well, I wanted to like mention a framing for this, which is for us as musicians. Okay, so kind of like imagine an issue that you're working on, like deep-seated in therapy for like 7 years, and like the demoitis thing is that it's this thing we've been working on for like 8 years nonstop. And the first part of that journey was Aaron Dessner, who's in the National.
Yes.
He produced our second record with us, and he was the first one to kind of, like, we made this first record and very meticulous, and we were, had kind of had it all planned out and buttoned up, and then he was the first one to kind of open up this idea of in the moment experimentation. We had written that way, but we hadn't recorded and produced that way. And Aaron is an interesting one because he's very meticulous, but he also really knows how to capture the magic of spontaneity. And so that seed kind of grew. That was in 2011 and 2012, and it's been on this journey. And I think it was right time, right place. We've been really good. We've gone to our therapy sessions, and Sean is like, I wish that you guys could understand. He's Canadian. He's got
Well, that explains it.
so he's so friendly, and then he's got these dreadlocks, and he wears.
Did you guys see Matrix 2? He was like one of the twins. In the picture. I know. That's why I
that's
brought it
actually
up.
his avatar for his social media, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But he is like the most spontaneous person, and he never wants to do anything the same way. A lot of producers kind of like have a bag of tricks
Right.
or the easy way. He always wants to try something really like mind-blowingly cool and that we've never even heard of or thought of before. And so it was just a perfect alchemy of being in that kind of creative environment.
I mean,
together.
one of the things one of you guys said this was the most out of control you've ever been.
I think I said that.
Kels, that
And
gave
I'm
you like
wondering-
anxiety
but the
for a
question,
second.
I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
But the question is it about being out of control, or is it about being giving up control?
Yeah, it totally is that, and
Yeah.
and all the albums before was very like we he has to have his part, and like trying to like think of a song as almost like a painting, and every color needs to be filled in, but like really a song can evolve constantly up until the point right before it gets like mastered or something.
Yeah.
And with Sean, we were like we have a chord structure and an idea, but we have no idea what it should or shouldn't be, and we just go from there and find these little nuggets of gold, and we'd be like old miners, like the gold.
Old
I
miners
found
in
it.
therapy.
In terms of the songwriting, though, did you have ideas going into the studio, or was it just
We did this.
we're riffing on this and we're just going to figure it out as we go?
One thing that we figured out works very well for us is to okay, so we made the record in Los Angeles, and this is our home, and we love it here so much. It's like such a huge part of our identity.
Yeah, LA.
You guys
right? Yeah, we're in
Must
LA.
like LA, yeah.
This is like a home game.
It
for you
is,
guys.
yeah. It's great. But one thing that we figured out works so well for us is to really get out and get away and go somewhere. Like on our third record, we went to Thailand and Nicaragua, and then on this record, we spent a month in Mexico, and that's where all the kind of seeds of this song came. So we had 1 month in Mexico, in this beautiful place on this beach. And there's just nothing to do but make music all the time, and it's such a fantastic way for us as a band to really get into a creative zone when we're starting a record.
Yeah. One of the things, talk to many artists who write records, they record them, and it's only really when the album is done do they kind of come to an understanding of a thematic thread, something that sort of ties the whole thing together. Is there a thematic thread to Violet Street?
Yeah, that is correct for us. Every time the thread comes out when the album is finished, that's absolutely true for us. And for this one of the things we talked about was that we kind of found was finding beauty in chaos, basically. And there was kind of this thread of where we have this chaotic world, but what are the things that really give you grounding and give you peace, and like what feels like home? And for all of us, it's relationships, and those things were kind of like being sung about through the lyrics in all kinds of different ways. So that was one big thing, and we kind of found it. There was this one moment on the making of the album that really encapsulated that so beautifully, and it was. Sean put up this microphone in the middle of the room.
I was just going to ask you.
Do you know this one?
Yeah, totally.
'Cause
This
this
weird
is,
mic, some like weird like 360.
Sean talks about it on a song exploder for the Perfume Genius record he did. It's fantastic. And he has this, it's a binaural microphone. It looks like a human head, which is a little bit creepy. And he has to have it on everything, so it's always staring right at you whenever you're recording any part. But what's so cool about it is if you go and like whisper in its left ear, you hear that in the sonic field in the mix, at the end. And so it's this really amazing mic. And he put it up in the middle of the room, and we're like, okay, we're going to create just a chaos of noise. And we're all running around it and screaming. And it got like a little Lord of the Flies or something. And we're banging on stuff. And we just really it got carried away and kind of all landed in this heap on the floor, kind of laughing. It was like screaming at the top of our lungs, probably 1 a.m. And Sean took all of that information and noise, and he tuned it into this chord, which is on the opening song of the record. And the only thing on that song, it's piano and violin and this beautiful noise. It's probably the most kind of like peaceful, beautiful moment on the album, and it came from in the recording process, like the wildest
Craziness
thing that we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is the theme of the album.
But and at what point in the recording process did that happen? When did that happen?
It had to have been like in the middle.
Right in the middle, yeah.
Yeah. At that point, did you realize, now we get it?
We got it after 3 days.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
We got it
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
quick with Sean.
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
So we're very democratic, and it takes us a while to make decisions. And,
Yeah.
and like we were like, let's do 10 days with Sean and see what happens. Like we weren't ready to commit to anybody for the record.
We were auditioning multi-Grammy award-winning producer Sean Everett.
Yeah,
We
we're-
thought that
Prove to us.
Yeah,
Prove to
you
us.
have a few.
We weren't sure
Maybe
if he
with a
was
few
good enough
more,
for
we'd like put
us.
pen to paper. But
Thank you for mentioning the Grammys. We appreciate that.
prove yourself, Sean.
Yeah, do we? So 3 days in, he's like doing. He's always like doing something on the computer, and he basically, it sounds like a joke, but he edits stuff so fast.
You know that movie
Like,
Hackers?
I don't know if you can hear, like,
Yes.
from the 90s?
Yeah.
That's what it's like all the time.
Yeah. And he just does stuff like in 3 seconds. We were in the other room working on some lyrics, and he brought us in. And it was for the song called Tap Dancer that ends the record. And he's like, hey, I did a thing. Listen to this. And he'd taken like the whole like first half of the song vocally and squashed the vocals into this weird alien vocal sound that you hear twice on the song. And he plays it, and we're just like, all of our jaws are dropped.
Done.
And we're like, this is the coolest thing we've ever heard. And you know that we are all in agreement when no one's like, I don't think. Like when
Was that
everyone
an
is
impression of
silent.
was that an impression of
Yeah,
yourself?
who was that in
Who
the
was it?
band?
Who
That
was
seemed
that?
like an impression of.
My impression of myself is me. Like I don't need to do that. I don't need. That's not
Speaking-
important.
Speaking of Tap Dancer, am I right that the Joan Didion book Year of Magical Thinking had something to do with that?
Yes, yeah. That Tap Dancer was one of the songs that I brought to the table. Taylor and Ryan and myself are we bring the songs, and then we kind of like flesh them out over the 5 of us. But that was one I brought, and I was reading that book and was really inspired by it. And that Artificial Roses line came from that book.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like as soon as we heard that sound that he made, like we all got outside and we were like, hey, we should just have him like mix and engineer and produce the whole album.
thing.
And
Done.
everyone's like, yes, we should.
Done.
We gave him all the jobs that you can give
Quickest
someone.
decision. Yeah.
Speaking of books, if I'm right, there were films that also sort of figured into the inspiration here. Tell me a little bit about the film aspect.
What's the streaming service that is not around anymore? Filmstruck.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing. So you can choose like a decade and a country.
Oh,
of
right.
cinema.
That's right. I read about.
And there was always some film on in the background, basically every day on silent, on mute, and often we would use it as a source of inspiration. So sometimes it's like some like super avant-garde 70s Italian film that I have no idea what it is, but it's really interesting to
Looks
to
cool.
look at.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's There Will Be Blood, which was really cool. I'll get sucked into that. And then sometimes it's I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah.
It was 1 through 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. We just kept it going.
It was actually the most distracting of all the films. We hadn't seen it for like 20 years.
But then there was 2 songs that actually didn't make this album. One came out on vinyl that we recorded a bunch of different ways, and we had too much information and too many styles. We're like, we don't know how to parse through this.
Yeah.
And we edited them to films or like scenes from films. Like we have no emotional like arc for it. Like let's just start from these scenes, and it was.
One was an intro to Drive.
The intro, the first 8 minutes to Drive, Sean edited this song that we made to like every
To the-
kind
to
of
the
beat.
movie.
Yeah.
Great movie, by the way.
So good.
Great
One of my faves.
Yeah. Great movie. So I mean, it's already become apparent that this is an extremely collaborative sort of group of musicians here. As you said, there are 3 songwriters here. Given the process that you went through with Sean, how did it change the nature of your collaboration?
I do think it just back to the thing, how you had put it, is like the surrender of control.
Yeah.
And that was just something I really feel like we settled into. And that was great. We know each other so well. We've been playing together for forever, well over a decade. And we can both know each other's strengths and kind of go, okay, this is like a perfect idea. Nick and Kelsey go at the piano, and like we need the perfect kind of like verse 2 backing melody for this. There are things like that we just all know immediately. But then there was so much space for just freedom of creativity. And I think we all tried things that we've never done before in the process of making this record. And I actually feel really proud of us in this album cycle for for being really free and kind of surrendering that
Yeah.
control.
Well, and one of the things, I mean, you mentioned, the band has been together for well over a decade. I have to believe that going through a process like this has to reinvigorate kind of the reason why you started playing music to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely did. And we're actually in the studio right now, like working on some songs that didn't
Yeah.
make like a couple of the albums, and
Uh-huh.
we're bringing those back to life, and already using so many things and tricks that we learned from
Right.
working with Sean. And I think that it's so rad to be, older and have all this information you've accrued over years, and you feel maybe wiser in a way, but also be able to be like, oh, all these rules are there for reasons, but they can be broken, and it's rad to break them.
Yeah, and one of the things you did, or one of the tools that you used, was this app, radio,
Yeah.
whatever.
Radio with like
yeah.
5 O's.
Yeah.
Radio.
Yeah, radio with like
Yeah.
five O's at
Yeah.
the end.
So-
Okay, explain what that is and how you used it.
That was actually for the song that we edited to Drive.
Uh-huh.
And it was, I think the song started just, Ryan, you had a riff or something like that. We didn't know. And basically the app is what you pick a country and a decade, similar to, I guess, to the Filmstruck thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, he only has one
really-
thing. Yeah.
They stole the
And it'll just play kind of some random song from that era and that part of the world that you've never heard of before, most likely. And so Sean would pull that up. I'm like, all right, play the song in this style. And so we would go and just do like a 10-minute take in that, our interpretation of that style of music. And so we had like, I don't know, probably like 45 minutes of just jamming, probably nonsensical jamming, but somehow Sean managed to find the best bits and like edit them into that 8-minute thing.
I love that. I would like to hear like the whatever version of the the Panamanian pop version of
Yeah.
whatever
Right.
whatever you were doing. I have to ask you about, because this is one of the things that is immediately apparent about the band. And I remember seeing you guys at Disney Hall a number of years ago, and one of the things that blew me away, because I was not as familiar with the band at that time, is the harmonies. And that's not always the easiest thing to come to when a band is figuring out who sings what and where. Did that just happen for you guys? Was that always there, or did you really have to figure that out?
What happened?
We've paid a price. We've paid an unrepayable price. Don't go down this road. Listen to me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Taylor, say real things.
I'll say that
Sorry.
this is another classic dynamic that you're witnessing here live. So what happened is we're kids, and we're playing in a band in our garage, and we're like 15 years old, and we're all writing songs, and we all want to sing, and like the simplest way to all sing at the same time is to
Figure out the harmony.
choose different notes.
Right.
And so that corresponded also, so we figured we can all sing if we all sing at the same time. And then we also really had this kind of 60s harmony band influence wave that struck us. So the Zombies, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, the Beach Boys and the Beatles were high school influences, all of those acts. So that just all, like maybe we got the idea from them, but we kind of figured it out. And so that was how it began. And now it's just, we've been doing it for almost 20 years.
Yeah. Holy
Kelsey sings the high parts. I sing
Yeah.
the low parts. He sings the middle parts. But
Yeah.
sometimes we switch it up to keep it interesting.
shit.
Yeah.
Low, medium, high,
High.
dog whistle. Matt is just like
Can't even hear it.
so out there.
One of the other things, and I guess some of this has to do with Sean. A lot of what you accomplished on this record in the studio could probably have been done in some more efficient manner, in using Pro Tools or Logic or whatever it might be. But you guys chose the kind of the analog route.
Sometimes we'd choose. Sometimes Sean would choose for us.
Okay,
And
explain.
then we would learn. He's like, "Oh, I've got an idea for this thing. Probably we could do it in Pro Tools in like 2 seconds, but we're gonna do it on tape. It's gonna take 2 days."
I think I think
That
I
sounds like fun.
There's like two stories that best exemplify that. One is we have this song called Megaton Mile, and I think you had mentioned.
By the way, great title.
Oh,
That is a
Right?
great title. I love that.
nice job. That's Ryan. Good job, Ryan, on the title.
Some people fought for that title. That's all I'll say. That's it.
Oh, I forgot about that battle.
I did
oh,
not.
Man. Keeping score of your victories.
You know, it's funny. Sometimes with these programs, I feel like I've walked in to the middle of a family reunion,
Yeah.
and that's sort of how I feel tonight. You know, like most of these people are somehow known to you, but that's okay.
Are you my uncle? You're my cool uncle. Hang out with after this. We'll be like, oh, good.
Not again.
So,
Anyway,
back
sorry.
to what we were talking about.
Back to Megaton Mile.
Megaton Mile, he mentioned Bowie as an influence on it. He's like, Eno did the coolest thing with Bowie, and you record each part in an 8-bar loop on tape that you have to. So you guys all know a tape machine, right? You like record on music on this thing that's spinning in the corner, but you would record the tape and then loop it through the middle of the room. So you have to like hold a mic stand
Yeah,
up.
like around mic stands.
And 8 bars of music is about 15 feet of tape or so, maybe 20 feet, something like that. And so everybody recorded each part on this loop. It took forever, like every single part on this little loop. And then at the end, he puts it all into the board, and then you can play the song with the faders. So each of us are playing the song like, okay, I'm playing these 3 chords, and you're playing the drum and the kick and the snare, and so it's spread across the board, and we play the arrangement of the song. Is this making sense?
Yeah, who understands
all?
this
It's
at
like
all?
a game of Twister.
It's
To your point, we
Yeah.
could have done it in Pro Tools in like
in about 10
20
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah.
But
We have to do like
To-
3 hours
against
to
your
explain
point,
what
yes.
he did.
there's all these like magical moments. Like I could probably, or any one of us could like edit that together. Like right now, we know how the drums go, we know how the song structure goes. But like, there's all these like magical moments of like, if you're playing a fader, like someone fucked up and like you one finger was slow and the other 3 got it right. And there's like, I mean, if you heard the song, there's like all these weird imperfections. I think it's
We could
because
never
of
do
that.
it the same
Right.
twice.
No,
Like,
no.
It was just
Yeah.
We're like
I mean,
this.
it's really. I mean, some of that, yes. I mean, the whole Brian Eno connection and playing the desk. That's one thing. But there's also an attitude of embracing the happy accident,
that's
which
a big
not a lot of
lesson.
artists are comfortable with all the time.
We found those to be our favorite parts. Every record that we do, we're like, oh, like we find such like they're these gifts that
Yeah.
you couldn't ever predict. They're always like so
Yeah.
rad.
Yeah. I have to ask because there's one song that screams. It has this Ennio Morricone sort of vibe.
Right.
Which song is which song? Remind.
Garden of Elysian.
That's it.
Yeah.
Intentional to go the Ennio Morricone
Yeah.
route.
Yep. Yeah, we
Okay, good to know.
you nailed it.
I got it.
Not hiding
Good for
it.
me.
We thought that he really had a sweet style, so
Yeah.
we thought we'd get some of that.
Yeah, he did pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did.
I also understand that Tusk era Fleetwood Mac was kind of an influence here.
For sure. Yeah.
Explain a little bit.
We did a cover for Spotify of Tusk like earlier last year, and then we started getting into this other song, and it's called Shy, and it ended up really like influencing us, like all the horn stuff in Tusk,
Yeah.
bringing that into Shy, and then we had this I don't know whose idea it was to take this actual like drum solo from the cover we did and put it into the actual song. I don't know if we're supposed to get sued by this, but I don't know who's gonna sue me.
We
Like
sampled
Spotify,
ourselves.
Fleetwood Mac. Like,
You know that we
Come
had
at me.
agreed not to talk about that.
excuse me.
Pretty much done now.
Let me tell you all
Anybody
the
work
other
at
stuff we ripped
Spotify?
off.
I'm not scared. They're all old now.
Okay.
Spotify
great.
is so far away.
We sampled ourselves, but it was like we had this song.
Are you allowed
Yeah,
to
that's
sample
the
yourself?
legal.
It's very gray legal territory.
Yeah. But
So
we
I have
had
to sue myself?
We had this song, and it was like we kind of hit a wall. It was just like first chorus. We didn't know where to go, and I think like where this started, like that was such an inspiration. Like it just took like a wild turn, and I guess back to like the happy accidents and magic. Like we couldn't have planned that. We couldn't have been like, all right, like everyone, do your guitar part, do your piano part, and then like, all right, everyone, get your horns out. Like this is like we couldn't have planned that, and it took like just a wild turn.
It's like, we should do this cover because someday we're going to use it for another song, for a little part in it, and we're not going to get worried about being sued.
So you touched on you touched on this a little bit. This was obviously done. Violet Street is named for the street that Sean's studio is on, right here in beautiful downtown Los Angeles. But Los Angeles as a place, not only is it your hometown and really important, to you guys, but it's almost a character. On the album, is that how you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. We tend to write really experientially. We tend to write about the things that are happening in our lives, and we spent so long now at this point, like 10 years in LA, and we figured if we stay in one place, if we could stay in LA, like it would for sure be a part of the record.
Right.
So we were very, very happy to be here and to make it. And it had been a change because the last record we went to a bunch of different places all over the world to make the record, and so. I mean, Violet Street was so much a product of the time in our lives. Like, we're ready to kind of feel the uniqueness of being like a band again and playing in a room together again and really embracing like the city we live in again.
Yeah.
Right, because again, but that's how we made Gorilla Manor, and then he already mentioned our third record, and our second one was with Aaron in New York. So it felt really nice to be back.
Yeah. So we've spent all this time talking about making this record and being in the studio. Another thing entirely now to take these songs out and play them on stage. As you're going through this fantastical process with Sean, how much of live performance is in your mind?
We totally zero, none.
None.
Yeah, we threw that out. It doesn't matter at all, because one thing that we figured out is that even the songs from our first record that are much more, it is just us playing in a room, on the final record, it's more that way. They've changed so much over, the last 10 years that we've been playing them live. And so to us, it's a completely different category. What can happen on a recorded album? And actually, I do feel like Aaron, again, was kind of the first one to really put that in. And I've read that he also, like Justin Vernon from Bon Iver has mentioned that Aaron kind of taught him that lesson as well. And if you guys are Bon Iver fans, last album, it's very great. And it's just like the greatest thing to not be constrained by that when you're in the studio.
Yeah.
And then for us as a live band, we do tour so much and all the time, and it's really fun to just say, what is the best expression of this song live? And then we similarly don't have constraints on that side.
Yeah. So how did you then go about figuring that out in terms of how to present these songs, and how much did they change kind of once you played them on stage?
Well, I feel like the wild nature in which we recorded a lot of these songs made it so that like we had to be very creative in how we'd like reproduce them.
Sure.
But again, it's just like it's less about like, oh, this like on this there's a song called Someday Now, and it's like Coke bottles with water filled in. He did it. He can show you. They have water in each of them. And it tunes them a certain way, and that is like this insane thing. I don't know if you've seen us live, but like I'm doing a lot on stage, and I got rather upset with Taylor asking me to do the Coke bottles and the piano and sing and do this other thing.
You have
and I'm like, that's impossible.
You have the nickname the Octopus for a reason.
I know.
And if you want to keep it, you'll
Sure.
keep adding tasks.
I try my best. He pushes me. It's good. It's good. It's good that he pushes me. But it's about like you're creating the feeling. You're just creating the feeling that you have from from the song. And if you can create the feeling in any number of different ways live, then you've achieved the thing. And then it's like even more fun still, because it's if you like the record and you go see the band play live and they do kind of a different version, that's always really rad too.
Yeah. So I want to roll the videotape way back just for a second. We're going to ask for a couple questions from the house in a minute. So when you guys first got together, we had Duff McKagan here, I don't know, a few months ago, and we were talking about, when he got together, Guns N' Roses got together, and the moment at which the band sort of all realized that there was one band that they could all sign up to. They could all agree that they loved that band. I think for those guys it was Motorhead, or I'm pretty sure it was Motorhead. Was there a band or an artist that when you first started putting this together that you could all agree was like, yep, I dig them or her or him or whatever?
I think no.
I think yes.
I would say
I don't know
yes.
that you like the answer, but that's the answer.
I want Ryan to answer, because I think that you're gonna support me against Kelsey. I'm saying we all have had different ones, kind of always.
Well, I feel like Kelsey's
Yeah,
is
we
and
can say all of them.
always was Radiohead. Is that fair?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Ever heard of In Rainbows? Right?
A great story about that is like our manager Phil, who's here. Phil Costello, you here?
Woo!
He's
Yeah.
here somewhere.
He hates when we point him out.
He worked with
probably
Radiohead
left.
throughout their whole career.
Yes.
And when Phil first hit us up to want to work with us, and Kelsey found out that Phil had worked with Radiohead, he was like, I don't care who else is out there. I don't care anything. He like cut ties with everybody else that we were talking to, and really sealed the deal.
Done.
Yeah.
All right. So
True.
as I said, we're going to take a couple questions. We got a little time for a couple questions from the house. Yes, right here.
I apologize if I missed this, but you were talking about the magic of discovery by doing things kind of the hard way, like crazy 8-bar loops and physical tape running around to digital software and stuff. And you said, Taylor, you said there were 2 stories. And you told the one about Bowie and Eno. Did I miss the other one? Oh, no. Did you not tell it? I didn't tell it. Yeah, it's...
Oh, at the
Yeah.
end of When Am I Gonna Lose You?
I think
Yeah.
I spent like 2 days with Ivan, Sean's assistant. Basically, Sean was like, "All right, we're gonna do this like this."
It's a thing that has
choppy-
never been done in recorded history. So the idea was to take the tape, and then tape splicing is how you used to edit and everything, and you could do that. But he wanted to cut windows out of the tape and loop it and like cut segments out and paste it up. And you spent way more than 2 days.
So yeah,
that was
so
a,
Ivan
that was
and
a
I s-
4 day
we
straight
spent like
project.
3 days just like cutting up tape, and then like, all right, put it on the wall, measure it here, and then like I half the time I didn't know what the hell we were doing, but he's like, it's gonna work, it's gonna be great, and then finally we like reassembled the tape, like it's like there's tape and shards of tape everywhere, and we like shittily put it on the reel, and then it played and it did the thing that we wanted, but it was like I think it's literally
It's
seconds.
7.
seven
It's 7
seconds at the end of
seconds.
the song. So
It's the very last
enjoy
7
that
seconds
7 seconds.
underneath the rest of the band playing. But it
It's a
does
cool
sound
7
very
seconds.
cool, but it was a lot of effort for a very
Yeah.
short
Who
amount of
else?
time.
Right here. Favorite on the
It's
record.
a controversial
done it.
question.
Now
You're
you've
throwing
really
a
done it.
grenade.
Do you
Yes,
mean
we're all
before we started recording, like if there was a song that everyone was like, oh, this is going to be the one, or like later, like towards the end, like what's our favorite?
So yeah, kind of post-recording.
I think it's you can probably get a dynamic of us over this last half an hour, but like I think there's like groups of like, oh,
We all
this
think
one's
it's
our
shy.
favorite. We all think it's shy. There's like like we all like different things, and so like, and it almost gets Game of Thronesy. We're like, oh, I know Ryan likes like the same thing
lot
I
of
like,
politics.
and like I
If
can
you
get
had
Taylor
any
on
idea,
board.
like how many hours we talked about why one song is better than the other, And like the track listing conversation, we probably went into 30 hours, I would say.
The answer is no.
Yeah. we can give you our personal ones, but they'll probably be five different
Glad
songs.
you guys came to that. Way in the back. Highlights from touring. Is there
here I got
a
one.
moment, whether it was a special venue, some moment on stage that kind of blew you away?
From this album, I would say it was the hometown show, which was at the Palladium.
Yeah.
And playing at home is so special for us because it's all of our friends and all of our family, and we have blown it every single album by not like playing so bad or something, but just we always would start the tour at like the Greek. The last two album cycles is what we did, and we could not play the songs really yet. We weren't that comfortable with them, and we figured it out, and we played it at the very last show in LA, and it was amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
We got time for one more. Who's got? Yes.
I love-
You
That's
know
good.
that we do.
That sounds like an inside question here.
We love
This-
home state tacos.
This-
Homestay.
Yeah. This
And the
person,
best home state taco of all is a taco called the Local Native that is not on menu, but you can still order at any home state, right?
Yeah.
Secret. We got the owners of home state in the house,
Good to know.
and we did a taco together.
Tacos for everybody. Last question. 2019, 10th anniversary of the release of Gorilla Manor. When you listen back to that now, what do you hear?
I'll have to ask
Shock
myself
and
like
horror.
Listen
7
to it.
years ago. I haven't heard it. In
Don't
in
listen
real-
to it,
But it comes on, like you've heard it.
and then I run away.
Yeah. Ryan especially gets so uncomfortable to hear any recordings of ours, but our old recordings. You kind of shrink up. So cute.
There's a bittersweet thing that happens making records because you spend so much time working on the record.
Yeah.
And then it's done, and every time you hear it again, you're like, I wish that was different. I wish that was different. I wish like all this stuff. And I remember like being a huge Radiohead fan. Like when I was in like high school, he was doing an interview and he's like, I can't listen to any of my records. And I was like, what? You're in Radiohead.
Yeah.
You make Radiohead records. What?
Have you?
the-
They're
what
so
the
good.
fuck are you talking about? Like, you're Tom York. Are you crazy? Yeah. And then, but now I'm like, okay, I understand that there's such a unique perspective for the people making the record that nobody else is gonna have, and like we're so lucky to be doing it, and I'm so proud of the records, but it is something that it's gonna be impossible for me to understand in the way that anyone else does that likes it.
So you're saying you're like Tom York?
Yeah.
I
boy.
am equal to or a little bit less than Tom York.
That's the takeaway.
Yeah.
This is not filmed, right?
Oh no, this is just between us.
Fantastic.
This is just between us.
Oh, that's
Hey,
good.
We're so grateful that you guys took the time. The record's called Violet Street. It's fantastic. I know that these people and myself want to hear a little bit of music, and you'll be outside signing afterwards. Very excited about that. Give it up for Local Natives.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.